Let's move on to page 192, all the way at the top, number 2. We're starting at 2:25 p.m. We want to know what time it was when it was 2 hours earlier. So 2 hours, I'm not dealing with any minutes this time. This one's not so bad. If I start at 2:25 p.m. and I go back 2 hours, well, here's 1 hour. That would bring me at about 1:25 p.m. And here's 2 hours. That is going to bring me at 12:25 p.m. A is done. Let's look at B. This time, this one does have some minutes added there that it wants us to subtract. So I've got the time is 2:25 p.m. What time was it? 2 hours and 25 minutes earlier. So 2 hours, 25 minutes earlier. So going back in time again. Okay, well, just like we did when we add, it's nice if we're going back in time when you've got minutes to deal with. It's nice to go ahead and try to find your closest hour, which is in this case 2 o'clock p.m. How many minutes is it from 25 to 2 o'clock p.m.? Well, that's just 25 minutes. And look at that. We've got the 25 minutes taken care of now. Now that we're at 2 o'clock p.m., now we just have to go back 2 more hours. So 1, 2, this brings me to 12 o'clock p.m. And that's my answer for letter B. Now we're on letter C. Look at the difference between this one and the last one. The last one was 2 hours and 25 minutes earlier, and this one is 3 hours, 25 minutes earlier. It's just subtracting 1 extra hour. So I kept all my work up here. We can reuse a lot of this. We have the same minutes, and we know that going from 2:25 p.m. back to 2 o'clock p.m. was 25 minutes. That takes care of the minutes. They're done and taken care of. Now, this is 2 hours, but we need to go another hour back. So if we just go ahead and add just 1 extra hour onto there, 2 plus 1 is 3, that will take care of my 3 hours. What time do we end up at? Don't forget, when you cross the 12 o'clock, if you're going back in time, you're going, or forward in time, either way, you have to switch from PM to AM or from AM to PM, whichever one makes sense for your problem. In this case, we switched from PM, which is noon, to AM, okay? So we started at 2:25 p.m., 3 hours, 25 minutes earlier than that time is 11 o'clock a.m. Now let's look at letter D. This one is very similar to the one we just did. So you can see it says 3 hours and 45 minutes earlier. The other one was just 3 hours and 25 minutes earlier. So what you could do is just go back 20 more minutes, but let's just do it the little bit longer way to really, really understand what's going on. Okay, so we had 3 hours, 45 minutes earlier. So let's go back to here. To get from 2:25 p.m. to 2 o'clock p.m., we use up 25 minutes, but only 25 minutes. So I'm going to break this guy up again. It's going to break up into 25 minutes plus how many minutes? Plus how many minutes is 45 minutes? 25, 20 minutes. 25 plus 20 is 45. So I have taken care of 25 of my minutes. I can't forget to add that 20 minutes on at the very end, okay? Let's take care of my hours. Now that I'm at 2 o'clock, we're going to take care of my hours. And guess what? We did that before, 3 hours. Here's 1, 2, 3. All together, this is 3 hours. I'm just going to go ahead and combine them like that. That brings us to 11 o'clock a.m. we took care of my 3 hours. Now we can deal with my 20 minutes. So if we start at 11 a.m., which is on the 60-minute mark, and we go backwards at 20 minutes, well, that brings us to 40. So since we're going to be before 11 o'clock a.m., this is going to be 10:40. I know that's hard to see. All right, so 10:40 plus 20 minutes is 11 o'clock a.m. 40 plus 20 is 60. So I took care of my 20 minutes, I took care of my 25 minutes, and I took care of my 3 hours. What time is it? 3 hours and 45 minutes earlier from 2:25 p.m.? Well, it is 10:40 a.m. We're going to move on now to page 192, number 3. It says the time is 6:15 a.m. What time was it? A says 6 hours earlier, so 6 hours back in time. I'll let you do that one on your own. Let's look at B. It's just a touch harder. It says 10 hours earlier. There's so many different ways you can solve these problems. You can do it with a number line. You can do it in your head. Right now, I'm just going to use our clock to show us how to do this one on our clock. Even though you may not have this at home, you can think about it, okay? So I've got 6:15 a.m. I want to go back in time. So every time this one goes around once, it's 1 hour. This is my minute hand, all right? So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I just passed 12. That means I just switched from AM to PM. 7, 8, 9, and 10. As you can see, I'm at 8:15, and I'm at the PM mark because I passed up 12, and I was at AM, so I've got to go to the other one. I'm at 8:15 p.m. Let's try. Now this is something you could do at home. Let me get back to 6:15. Okay, so if you look on a clock at home, if I just want to know 10 hours before, all right, well, I know my hour hand is going to move 10 numbers backwards. So here we go. It's at 6, or just past 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a 12. 7, 8, 9, 10. So here I was just past 6 at 6:15. Now I'm going to be just past 8, and I'm going to be at 8:15. Remember, we crossed that 12. Now let's look at the rest of the problems in this section. So 3C, we might assign that one for homework, but I am going to show you 3D right here. 10 hours and 35 minutes earlier. We start at 6:15 a.m. and it wants us to go back in time 10 hours, 35 minutes. Okay. Earlier. I've already written some of this out. Let's look at this. We started at 6:15 a.m. Because we're dealing with minutes, let's go ahead and break up these minutes into 2 separate parts that add together. So to get from 6:15 to the next closest hour backwards would be 6 o'clock a.m., and that would be 15 minutes. 6 o'clock to 6:15 is 15 minutes. I have 15 minutes here, so I've taken care of 15 minutes out of my 35 minutes. Let's see how much more time I'm going to have to subtract at the very end. I've got 35 minus 15. That will give me 20 extra minutes that I'm going to have to deal with at the end. But for right now, I've got my 15 minutes dealt with, so I'm going to check him off. Next, because we're on our hour right here, our 6 o'clock a.m. hour, let's deal with our hours now. Let's go back in time 10 hours. Well, from 6 o'clock all the way back 6 hours will bring us to 12 o'clock a.m., which is midnight. Okay, so that's 6 hours. And that's only 6 of my hours though. So I've got 4 more to go, and here they are. 4 hours back in time, 12 minus 4 is 8. We crossed that 12, we crossed that 12 o'clock mark, and so I changed from a.m. to p.m. 6 plus 4 is 10. My 10 hours are taken care of. My 15 minutes are taken care of. Now I just have to go ahead and deal with my last little 20 minutes there. So I know that this is 60, the 60-minute mark right there. 60 minutes minus my 20 minutes will bring me to 40 minutes. 40 minutes will bring me right, a little bit too far down there, right about here at 7:40 p.m. So just think about it. Did I just deal with my 20 minutes? Well, let's see. Is it 20 minutes from 7:40 to 8 o'clock p.m.? Well, sure it is. 7:40, add another 10, that's 7:50 p.m., and then add one more 10, and that'll bring me to 8 o'clock p.m. So I've dealt with my 20 minutes right there. Perfect. 10 hours, 35 minutes earlier, if I started at 6:15 a.m., would be 7:40 p.m. Let's look at exercise 7 on page 195. We're going to go to number 2. It's a little word problem here. Go ahead and follow along as I read. It said the sunset was at 8:45 p.m. Here we go. The sun rose 8 hours and 45 minutes later. What time was sunrise? Okay. Sunset, 8:45 p.m. The sun rose 8 hours and 45 minutes later. I want to know when sunrise happened the next day. So sometime around here is sunrise. Okay, so this will be sunrise right over here. Okay, all right. Well, let's see what we've got. I always like to go to my next closest hour. All right, my next closest hour from 8:45 p.m., since I'm going forward in time, will be 9 o'clock p.m. Think about how many minutes are in between 45 and 60 minutes. 60 minus 45 is 15. And you know what? I should show you right here really fast. Because when you divide an hour into quarters, you'll be doing that a lot. When you divide it into 4 parts, you're going to end up at the 15 after, okay, which is right here. So here's, if we start at 6, here's the first quarter of the clock. And look, you can tell that's 1 quarter. 1/4 of my clock is right there. 6:15. And now we're going to go to the 30-minute mark, which is half of it. There's my other quarter. And then all together, we've gone a halfway point on the clock, so 6:30. My next quarter is 6:45. And sure enough, from here to here, that looks like a quarter of the clock. And then finally, my last quarter is my 60-minute mark. Okay, so if you think about dividing a clock into quarters, it'll be 60 minutes divided by 4. You'll end up at the 15-minute mark. the 30-minute mark, the 14 mark, and the 60-minute mark. You'll get to those quarters every 15 minutes. All right, so that's just a good thing to know, especially when you're dealing with a lot of these time problems. 60 minus 45 is 15. There are 15 minutes from 8:45 to 9 o'clock p.m. I just showed you that on my clock, okay? From 45 to 60, there are 15 minutes, okay? I'm going to erase these little guys so we don't get confused. And, 15 minutes. I'm dealing with 45 minutes. I'm going to separate him into two separate numbers that add together. So 45 minus 15, here's another quarter point, it's 30. All right, so 30 plus 15 is 45, okay? I've already dealt with my 15 minutes. I'm going to deal with my 30 minutes at the end because now I'm at a solid hour mark. I'm going to deal with my hours, 8 hours, okay? So it's nice, it's really nice to get to my 12 and then go on from there. So it's nice to kind of separate this guy up a little bit too. Okay, since our time starts over at 12, we go back to 1. I can't just add 9 plus 8. That would get me 17. Now for military time, that's okay, but we're not dealing with that right now. All right, so we got how many hours in between 9 and 12? 9 plus what is 12? 3. So I have 3 hours. I have to deal with 5 more hours because 8 minus 3 is 5. So I've got 5 hours here. 3 plus 5 is 8. I've dealt with my 8 hours. So I know from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock a.m., because I'm crossing my 12 o'clock mark, from p.m. to a.m., I know that that's 3 hours. Now, what time is it if I start at 12 o'clock a.m. and go 5 hours? Well, that's just 5 o'clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 o'clock. Or I'm sorry, this will be 5 o'clock p.m. All right, perfect. So I've dealt with my hours. I've dealt with some of my minutes. So I've dealt with my 15 minutes. Now I need to deal with my 30 minutes. I'm at 5 o'clock p.m. If I add 30 minutes onto here, that's going to bring me at 5:30. Don't forget, we're at a.m. now. Ooh, I made a mistake. So if we go back, don't forget, obviously I did. I forgot that we had switched over to a.m. This was 5 o'clock a.m. And now we're at 5:30 a.m. Okay, so sunset was 8:45 p.m. We dealt with all of my numbers, 8 hours, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Sunrise is at 5:30 a.m. Since they asked us a question, we have got to make sure that we answer this in a complete sentence. Okay, so it says, what time was sunrise? Now, Mrs. Workington does it a great way. She has you start to write the sentence first. I failed to do that for you because I do it a little bit differently, but what time was sunrise? We always have to make sure that we write that sentence to answer the question. So the sunrise was at 5:30 a.m. There we go. So you can see it's really nice to use these timelines. It helps you kind of put your mind around it and really get a grasp on it.